Hello and welcome to this edition to Scott and Pop Talk Baseball and Life. Uh, First off, then I'm going to jump right into it. I just want to bring this up real quick. Me and him really hasn't talked about anything uh, other than what team we're going to talk about today, which will be the Marlins. Let's see here. So I just wanted to bring this up real quick on how things have changed, and just we haven't done this in a couple of weeks because of life happenings. But I just want to look down here at the Cardinals. I think the last time we talked, they were 10 games back.
And now they're 5. They're moving.
Yeah, now they're 5. They're getting some at bats, some better pitching. I just wanted to, and that whole division's mixed up now. Well, Pirates are in second. Brewers are in first. So we're starting to see that division more like we thought it was going to be before the season started. Pirates are still playing well. The season, I think I looked at it. I think if it ended today, they would have a wild card. No, there'll be one game out of the wild card. The Mets, they don't play till the 8th inning, but at least they're getting it. They're a don't die attitude right now.
Well, the cream's coming to the top. The Yankees are moving. The Mets are making a little bit of a move. The Cardinals are moving. The
Diamondbacks. Man, the Diamondbacks is still a great surprise. 27 is 20. The Padres. I was listening to MLB, and they're not getting hitting. Which I already knew from guys they got hitting from last year in the bottom part of the order. But Soto's starting to play now, but they're
the biggest disappointment. I feel like the Padres are the biggest disappointment. They're the first biggest disappointment, and the other one's the Phillies. But the Phillies are starting to make a little bit of a move.
Yeah, but they can't. Me and some of my Philly friends were talking last night. They just can't get. They can't be consistent. That's the problem with them right now. But that's the way baseball is. You go in you want to win a few more in your streaks than you lose in your streaks.
Well, Trey Turner hit 9,000 in the World Baseball Classic, and now he's hitting 140. So
right.
Fans in Philly are booing him. So
right,
that's one of the problems. When your leadoff hitter can't get on base, you got a problem.
Right. Sorry, my allergies this morning are kicking my butt. So the Braves, we know who they are.
But their starting pitching is injured. So they're going to have a tough time hanging on, I think.
We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a few minutes too. I got a few more things. So I'll switch it over to the American League. You're wearing your O's hat. Appreciate you wearing my shirt today. A little shout out to myself. But we know the Rays. We didn't know they're going to 34-14. Who would have thought that the Orioles at 31-16, I believe, got the second best record in baseball.
It is.
And they're in second place with 31-16. You got the Yankees
division, and they're leading the division.
Right, 29-20. That division, Boston 26-21, Blue Jays 25-22.
They're going the opposite direction.
Right. And they got the Orioles swept them this weekend. The Orioles are for real, folks.
Did you see where the Toronto manager miscounted the trips to the mound?
No, but
they had to take the pitcher out because he miscounted the trips to the mound.
Well, but that's a last year's
something
rule,
like
right?
That. Yeah.
Yeah. So and then you got the, Twins. We both talked before the season, but they're the only one it's the opposite in the Central. They're the only one with the winning record.
Right.
They're
probably
3 games above 500.
What tells you something about that division are the Tigers are second. That tells you all you need to know about that division. The Guardians still have the same problem they've had all along. Either they don't score enough runs when their best pitcher pitches, or their bullpen gives up the game at the end. So
if I watched last night, I was doing my show as well, but Now that Verlander come out looking like a younger version of himself, and Bieber looked like Bieber. I mean, that dude.
They put on a show.
Right. That game felt like it lasted about 90 minutes. Those two guys, Ramirez ran into one on Verlander early, but that's Ramirez is just a stud. But anyway, back the Rangers. Talked to my buddy from Texas, loves the Rangers, Mike. That is a pleasant surprise when teams that have been bad for a while turn it around.
And DeGrom's out.
Right. And it's a plus for baseball to have another team. I thought the Mariners would be a challenger.
I did
2
too.
games under 500. The Athletics is shameful. 10-38. That's the team we should have talked about at the beginning of the year. But we all know what their owner has motives to be bad. So
he's going to Las Vegas.
Right. He wants to get that going. The Angels right there in the middle, they're battling. We want to see the Angels with the two better players in baseball. We got Rendon that's actually playing, and they're actually looking pretty good. Astros are who they are, 27-19. So
and them Astros have been winning a little more lately. So
right. And they're not as good as Astros teams but they just got you got pitching like they have. Where at the end of the year, they might have two guys battling for Cy Young on the same team. You don't have to have great hitting all the time. You can win some 2-1s, 1-0s. But I just wanted to bring that up because we are past the quarter mark of the season. We know this. We kind of know what teams are. They'll be making some moves before the trade deadline. We'll see who the sellers and buyers are. That'll be the next big watermark.
See, that brings up a problem for some teams because, like in the in the American League East, most of those teams would like to enhance their line, add somebody, a reliever or just somebody to help them a little bit. Now you get to the Central. If you're the Guardians and you have a losing record, are you going to be a seller? Because if you're a seller, you still have a chance to win your division because it's so weak. So
that's the problem they had last year.
Exactly.
They ended up being
trying to get one guy.
They ended up being they thought they were a seller and ended up getting a great addition that helped them late in the season by bringing up a rookie. I just think, that's a great point because to me in the East, you could have a winning record being fifth. Are you a buyer, a seller, or are you wait until next year?
You probably won't make the playoffs.
Right. So you're looking at the American League East, and most likely the two wild card teams are going to come from the American League East. So at the way it's looking, it's just or the three, and then the third one might come from the East, might not, but it's just you bring up a great point, and that makes it interesting for mid-season. Last year it was very interesting with that same question, and that'll be a question I'm sure we'll revisit. I just thought some good baseball over the weekend. You watched a lot of golf, right, over the weekend?
I watched quite a bit of the PGA tournament, and I also the women's softball in college started their World Series with their regional playoffs, right. And I was watching. Virginia Tech was in one of the regionals. They were in the Georgia regional, so I tried to find their games and watch their game, and I also watched part of a lacrosse game. The quarterfinals, Virginia beat Georgetown, and they're going to play Notre Dame in the semifinals in the Final Four next week. I'm one of those people. I'm not stuck on one sport. I watch whatever. Right. I like the improvement in the women's sports in all aspects: softball, basketball, all the sports. It makes it intriguing to watch. So I
softball's fun now because pitching doesn't dominate, and that made they had to move. I think they're going to probably have to move the fences back again. With the combination of girls throw hard and the bats and the speed, you don't even have to be that strong to hit it out. With all the combination and physics and everything, just bat angle, a good strike puts it over the fence. So they're gonna probably have to do something with that. But yeah, girls softball is fun to watch. That's one of those sports where it's kind of not an even playing field with men, because like in women's basketball, they do all the fundamentals correctly. They just don't have the excitement of the dunk, right? They've had the
hard time making a layup.
Right, that's the hardest shot in female
and they're shorter and they can't make the layups. But
right, shooting, is a layup.
Oh, and one thing about we're not talking about college, but one thing about college NCAA basketball, the women can shoot foul shots.
Right.
The men are. In the last 10 years, I played basketball when I was younger.
Right.
And we practiced foul shots every day. And and I'm telling you, watching men shoot foul shots now, it makes it sad. You want to cry because they can make 3-pointers and dunks, but can't make a mid-range jumper, and they can't shoot foul shots. Now let's get back to baseball.
Well, hey, you can get a little bit of everything on here. And next thing we were talking about, let's talk about series coming up. These are some intriguing, good another week of baseball coming up. You got Blue Jays, Rays. So if the Blue Jays want to, it's sad that they're 5 games over 500, and they need to put something together, or 3 games above 500. They better sweep the Rays if they want to make noise.
Oh yeah, the people in Toronto are ready to fire the manager. So
yeah,
they're winning record, and they're ready to fire the manager.
Right, Dodgers at Braves. So that's a big one for the National League East. That could be a shakeup after that series. That's Monday through Wednesday.
And remember, the Dodgers just lost the series to the Cardinals. So
right, the Dodgers are strong. They're strong, but they're not as strong as teams they've had in the past.
Right, and they just put Rio on the IL too.
Right. Yeah, so good point. We got Astros at Brewers.
That ought to be good.
Brewers are playing ball. I got it. That coach, he just gets it done with those guys. They're scrappy.
Counsel, the manager.
Yeah, and
we're going to talk about him later on.
And they got I guess they're calling it the beef or something. So they got Rowdy Tellez and some big boy, a little opposite. I remember, I don't know, 8 years ago, 6 years ago, I was living in Iowa, and you called me up and go, "Have you been watching Brewers baseball? They're so fun to watch. They're scrappy and run all over the place." They have a little bit of that. But man, they are beefy this year. A little bit more beef. What's that?
They're hitting home runs this year.
Yeah, I want to see what the spread is on the post-game food banquet they got set out with those boys. So, that's Astros are playing better. The Brewers are just chugging along. See what that does. This one is interesting. Rangers at Orioles. Orioles are playing well. They probably have the best 8th, 9th inning guys that surprised the world this year.
They can hold up.
Right. Well, of course, that's the way it always is. But man, I can't watch Orioles here and blacked out. But when I went home, me and you watched them, and those two guys.
Kano comes in the 8th.
Yeah.
The big guy comes in and
the mountain comes in the 9th.
It's on 100.
Sheesh. What do you do? I mean, that's like facing the unit back in the day for just 3 at-bats.
Well, it reminds me a lot of the bullpen that Kansas City had in 2016 when they won the World Series. Once they got to the 7th inning, they had 3 guys come in the 7th, 8th, and 9th, and nobody scored.
I can tell you what, the Orioles' bigger surprise is their starting pitching this year.
Yeah, they're doing very well.
I mean, you were telling me before they were struggling to get to the 5th, but that looks like that's even changed. Like now they got that one boy that's kind of setting the standard where he's getting to the 6th, 7th. Like, it's just another day out, and if they can continue that, they're going to be. And I mean, those young guys are. That is the funnest ballpark to watch games at on TV. With them doing the splash or the whatever in the outfield with the bird bath and all that stuff going on there at that stadium.
The splash zone.
Splash zone. There you go. That is just, they're having fun. They're smart. They have a young team. They're staying loose. The crowd is, you look at the crowd, they have a young crowd. It's just they're having fun. And that's what it's about. Baseball is a sport for kids, and they have not forgot it. And they got a bunch of kids.
And I don't care. People say, well, they're professionals. The crowd reaction shouldn't bother them one way or the other, or shouldn't affect them one way or the other. I'm sorry, but they're human beings also. And so if you're playing in a ballpark and the crowd turns on you and starts booing at your home fans, it affects you. It has to.
Lindor, Lindor's a perfect example of that.
When this crowd in Baltimore is having so much fun, the team's having fun. The team is when a guy gets a double, everybody gets him and spits water out of the dugout.
Right.
The team is having fun. There are a bunch of little leaguers having fun on a Saturday afternoon, and it just permeates throughout the whole ballpark.
And of course, winning is fun.
Yeah, winning solves a lot of problems.
Right. So that really does help. But
the A's in the 70s.
I wish I could watch Orioles games here. I wish I had a channel. If my cable offered it, I would probably go ahead and pay for cable just so I can watch Orioles games.
Well, see, I've got the option of watching Madison here. I can watch either the Orioles or the Nationals. Right. The Nationals are my team. Right. But I'm watching the Orioles more because they're winning, and it's more fun to watch.
The Nationals they need it. Well, they're in a rebuild. They have some.
And they're talking about trading the kid that's doing pretty well hitting and playing right field. They're already talking about trading him at the deadline, and maybe
they're going to have to trade some good parts to get better parts.
And they're talking about trading him to San Diego. So so he's a good young player, and they're going to trade him to San Diego. There you go. It's frustrating. I'm an old guy. I'm not going to be around that much longer to watch these guys. I'd like to see it before I go.
MLB has this listed, and I think it's more because it's a Yankees series, but Padres, Yankees. It's at Yankees, West Coast swing, west to east. They never really travel well going back that way. The Padres to me is such a failure right now. Their pitching stinks. They're not getting hitting. They're 21-26 with probably the best 4 or 5 hitters in Major League Baseball as a group on paper. And
but they don't play on paper.
Right. And they're pitching every other year. Snell is in a walk year, and he is horrible. So not very good. So that is here we go with the Orioles, and
they scored 5 runs in the 11th inning.
Right. So I just right now you say it, good teams find a way to win, and they know how to win now, and they just don't give up.
Lose.
Yeah.
They just know how to lose. They throw a ball away. They don't pick up a ground. They get, like yesterday, I watched some of the Nationals game, and they won. They beat Detroit. But they had 18 hits and scored 6 runs because they left about 3 million men on base. They won. Thank you, Lord, they won. But still, you watch that and you go, these kids got to learn how to get the clutch hit. do something, bunt, do something. And the manager sometimes doesn't. He could have a hit and run. He could do something, but he doesn't. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. So it's hard to watch that team because you never know what they're going to do. I mean, what game are they going to play today? So that's why I've been watching the Orioles, because the games are usually on simultaneously.
Right. That's, when you get the getaway day and one I was playing in the afternoon, the other was at night. That's a good day. You get to watch both. And to me, I'd be watching the Orioles, but that's just me. I would have a split screen. I would figure out something because they're just so exciting to watch. The Nationals, to me, you want to see their building, and you don't have to watch the games to really see that, but you do want to see, like, there's certain days, like when certain pitchers, I would like to watch when Gore's pitching. I would, things like that, and we see his progression. Because that's what you're looking at for the Nationals is purely progression. Winning and losses this year don't mean a thing, and you want to see what they do at the trade deadline to add some important parts to that center part, that middle that they have there. And I want to see that with other teams too. But not everybody can buy it or sell and do all. You got to have the pieces to sell to get.
See, Washington is still, the owner has been trying to sell the team for 2 years, and they haven't found a buyer, and that hurts them when it comes to free agents or, I mean, anything. It hurts them to a certain extent because they haven't found another buyer. Right. Thank goodness the Commanders are sold. Let's get that idiot out of town.
Well, we're going to be talking today mainly.
One thing I'd like to mention before.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan. Sure.
I would love to see this year more than ever. I have seen the strike zone not be the strike zone. I wish Major League, I know this, I'm sure that the commissioner of baseball is not watching this program. I'm sure. I wish somebody was in that office, because what I'd like to propose is this: take the box off of the screen.
Right. I
grew up watching baseball on television after 1950. When I was in the second grade, we finally got a TV. Let me tell you something. I grew up watching baseball, and I'd say, well, I think the umpire missed that call. With that box, there's no question. And the umpiring this year with that, I mean, it used to be one or two umpires were horrible. One of them's retired. But this year, I mean, what game was it? They showed it I saw it on the internet where the kid for, I can't remember which game it was now. He threw the ball, right down the middle. And the umpire called it a ball. Well, Mookie Betts came up in the ninth inning with men on base and a chance to either get ahead in St. Louis, or tie the game. And he was called out on a pitch that was about 6 inches outside. But if the box wasn't there, you'd know it was kind of outside. But you wouldn't go, oh my goodness, how can you miss that? But to me, I would do away with that thing.
Right, and it seems like to me the umpires are more spiteful now than they ever have been before. You look at them wrong or glare at them, or they either want to push to get something started, or they're going to get you back on the next pitch. It just seems that way this year. I don't know if it's true or not. It just seems that way to me. But
again, both managers were thrown out.
Right.
It was the Yankee game.
Right. Well, I grew up playing. We all grew up playing baseball, and early on, you want to know you want the umpire to be consistent. So if they call that pitch consistently, then But when all of a sudden the ninth inning,
with Mookie Betts, he had called strikes outside that box, outside all game. So part of it was Betts' fault. He should have known if he throws the ball, that ball's coming anywhere near the plate, I got to swing at it. And he didn't, and he was called out on strikes. But you're right. The umpire, in that case, he was consistent. And
I can tell you right now, here's a fact. In every before they walk out on the field, they'll have who the umpires are for the game, right before the dugout. just like any scouting report, they're going to have a scouting report on the umpire behind the plate.
Yeah.
What his strike zone is, what he calls, for the pitcher and the batters to have a somewhat of understanding. But if the umpire all of a sudden changes that, then there's, or changes midstream during the game, that's where issues can arise. So I'm with you on the box thing, because MLB's come out, all the stations have come out. That is not 100% accurate, and it's there for just a sight, so you have an understanding. But none of the cameras are square. Nothing is perfect on that. So they say.
I umpired high school baseball for 3 years, so I've been behind the plate, and I missed some calls. I mean, they were close, but I missed some calls. Everybody's human, but when you put that box up there, it just makes it look worse.
Right. Well, let's talk about a team. I mentioned it earlier. We're going to talk about a team that's actually not playing bad, actually hanging right in there in the National League East.
They've got pitching.
They got pitching, and they have some bats, but they just don't have enough. And that's the Marlins. You have to pay for home runs, and you have to pay. And that ballpark they play in does the hitting no favors. They have, I think they have a pretty darn good defense. And the Marlins, I mean, they're a new team. So when did the Marlins start? Do you have that information?
93. There was a bid went out, and it was I believe it was Tampa and Jacksonville and Miami. The owners all put in bids to get a expansion team. And Miami, Wayne Huizenga, who was Miami owner, he made the bid and he got it. So in 1993, they started as the Florida Marlins, not Miami. They were the Florida Marlins. They shared Joe Robbie Stadium with the Miami Dolphins. And they didn't move to Marlins Park, which became Lone Depot Park later on until 2012. But some of the players that they had were Jeff Conine, who was known as Mr. Marlin. In their first victory that first year against the Dodgers, he went 4 for 4, and he became a cult hero. They actually drew over 3 million people in their first year. Now they draw about 35 people a game, but they drew 3 million people. And Conine was known as Mr. Marlin. They also had Gary Sheffield and Brian Harvey later on. This is kind of interesting. Gary Sheffield was a good player, and he helped him win some games when he first came to him. But they traded Trevor Hoffman for him, who became the best reliever in baseball for years with the San Diego Padres. That's and then in 1997, they were the wild card team, and they went through and they beat the Braves in 7 games in the National League Championship, with Livian Hernandez striking out 15 in that 7th game, or in the 5th game. They played 3 out of 5. And then they beat Cleveland in 7 games in the World Series. Now, they traded and they got a few guys that to build that team up. And Huizenga also added free agents. He spent a lot of money. Your stepmother and I went down to Atlanta that year because I was an Atlanta fan then. She was too. We went there on TBS. So we went down there and we saw this team. We watched the games. And the Marlins beat them in both games early in the season in April. And, you could tell this team was loaded. Bobby Bonilla, Moises Alou, Edgar Renteria, Craig Counsell, and he's now the manager of the Milwaukee Brewers. Just one little interesting note. The Braves, the one hotel we contacted, when I told the lady we were coming down there for Braves games, we paid half price for the rooms, and the Braves picked up the rest of the tab because we were coming out of town to watch the games. That's one of the perks you got and we were walking there was a shopping center down at the bottom of this big escalator, and we went down there getting ready to go to the subway to go tour the city. And Craig Counsell and Red Torria walked right by us. Well, I mean, right by me. I went, that's Red Torria and Craig Counsell. Walked right by me. They were both kids then, but that was pretty special. That's a significant. Remember the Moises Alou name, because then they beat Cleveland in 7 games. Huizenga got the trophy, put it in his office, and dumped everybody. He dumped all the salaries, and the team went into a complete rebuild, and the fans bailed. And they really haven't drawn that much since then. But then in 2003, they came out of nowhere, and they beat the Yankees in 6 games for the World Series. But the important thing about that was not the World Series win over the Yankees. It was their winning the National League Championship or playoff games against the Cubs. Steve Bartman.
Yeah.
When the fly ball went to left field in foul territory and 12 people reached for the ball, but Steve Bartman was picked out as the bad guy. And guess who the left fielder was for the Chicago Cubs? Moises Alou. The same guy that won the World Series with the Marlins.
And he wouldn't have caught that ball if he was 12 feet tall.
Right. Yeah. Because he couldn't get to it. But Steve Bartman was blamed for it. And there are certain teams that I dislike after something happens. Ohio State, when Woody Hayes punched the linebacker for the Clemson, when the kid got to the sidelines and Woody Hayes smacked him in the helmet. I can't stand Ohio State just because of that. I was a Cubs fan. I was like everybody else. I wanted the Cubs to win, to break the streak, But after that thing with Steve Bartman, and that kid was blamed, and he had to go into hiding, and people threatened to kill him, it's taken me a long time to get back to where I want to see the Cubs win again. But anyway, that was the big thing about that. They called up Dontrell Willis, Miguel Cabrera that May. They signed Conine back. He was an old guy, but they brought him back. And some free agent, old catcher named Pudge Rodriguez. And they came in and they won that World Series, and then they were dumped again. And they've been doing it ever since, trying to now they were the Miami Marlins were a AAA baseball team in the International League from 56 to 60, and they had a guy on that team named Satchel Paige. And I actually saw them play the Richmond Virginians. My mom took me to a game over there in 1957, and I saw them play the Richmond Virginians in Richmond, but we never could see Satchel Paige. He never came out of the dugout, I never saw him, but I knew he was on the team. And I was 11, so I got to see the Miami Marlins play the Richmond Virginians. That's just, since then they've had Giancarlo Stanton and the young kid Hernandez that died in the boat accident. They've had a few good players, but
Yelich.
Their ballpark. They've moved the fences in, but it's still hard to hit a home run in that ballpark.
Yeah, and it's a spacious ballpark, and the ball just doesn't carry all that well there. I gotta give it to management though. That the problem with Florida altogether is it's just too much stuff there. Beaches, it just
amusement park.
Right. So to get fans, they try everything. They have a bar, lounge, party area in the outfield. It's a club. They put in aquariums in the fences. They made it like a hangout spot to come to the ballpark.
They're drawing a few more people, but
they draw. Even when they win, they have trouble. And it's not just centralized on Marlins, because I've stated it, because it gets frustrating with them and the Rays. They can have good teams and still, because I remember, I want to say it was 2003, and they had to cover part of the upper deck during the World Series because they couldn't sell the seats.
Right.
So, and I don't.
There's beaches, there's nightlife, there's a ton of things to do in Miami. The only problem with that argument is you have the same situation in LA, San Diego, and they draw.
But I mean, you don't have the history that the Dodgers have. You don't. I just think the Padres, they've been around for a while too. But I just think in Florida, for whatever reason, it happens to all the sports. I mean, you have the Lightning that won 2 Stanley Cups. They don't lead the league by any measure in attendance or Florida Panthers.
And the Florida Panthers this year are 2-0 up in the Eastern Conference Finals. There, I have watched hockey too because I like that too.
Right, but I mean it's
the same thing. Now they're drawing for the playoffs, but before the playoffs, they had very few sellouts.
Right,
you can't buy a ticket to go to a Caps game. The Caps sold out every game.
I just because I've always I would love to see both teams in Florida move.
Could it be that that's a spring training state, and a lot of people go watch their, like if you're a Yankee fan and you're 75 years old living in Florida, you go watch the Yankees play during spring training, and then you really don't have a team. They're back in New York. You're just not, the Marlins don't do anything for you because you're a Yankee fan or you're an Oriole fan or a Tiger fan.
Well, they get so many people come down for preseason to Florida and Arizona just for a week of vacation, and then they go to the games. But then that's a story for another day. They're pricing themselves out because they're making the preseason games just as expensive as a regular major league game. But the Marlins management, they do try to get the fans in the seats. They have a pretty good team. They don't have the money to spend like other teams on the East Coast. But this year they are competing. They got the reigning Cy Young winner. He's not pitching as well as last year, but the sad thing is he had such a great year last year that you're comparing him to last year. And if he do that again, they would rename the trophy after him, probably.
Yeah, they take Cy Young off and put him on there.
Yeah. So I'm like, we need to rethink. It's a new year, new guy. And baseball's so scientific now and mathematical that they'll break down all of his pitches and they'll find tendencies and everything where batters know when they go. I love watching ex-players, and it doesn't matter who they are. I could be sitting and go, who did this guy play for? But he still understands if he played in any minors or majors, they understand pitching and what's coming next, where the ball's going to be. It's amazing to me. And that's why it's still scratching my head why we don't see better hitting this year, because the hitters
hitting is a little better, but it's not.
It has gotten better, but when I'm looking at lineups, you might not see a 300 hitter on a team, or you probably won't. And your best hitter is going to be around 270 something, but you'll see a lot of 219s, 217s. And you're
because a lot of people are still using the analytics.
Right. And the Mets, that's what I'm afraid with the Mets. I don't want to fall in love with hitting home runs in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning. But anyway, that's the Marlins in a nutshell. I think overall, winning an expansion team that's won 2 World Series, no matter how they did it, they just do it a little different. That's outstanding. Right.
The Cubs won a World Series in 122 years.
Right. And they do it differently than other small markets. They see they have a chance and they add parts with their minor league system instead of piling their minor league system and building within, which seems to be the way now. So, they just did it a little different. And people I remember the grumblings, they win the World Series and then they send everybody off and rebuild. Well, that was how it's still a business. You got to understand that the owners are rich because they make money. They don't throw it away. So even when they have good players, and like you said, in 2003, they caught lightning in a bottle, and who would have done that again in 2004? Probably not. So,
and I remember their manager was 72 years old. I can't remember his name, but he used to sit in the dugout and smoke a cigar.
was that Leland? Jim Leland?
I mean,
Jim Leland?
He was. I'm telling you, they did. They had lightning in a bottle. Well, they had Brown, that pitcher. I mean, he was unhittable that year.
Right.
He was, because I saw him pitch in Atlanta, and he was outstanding. I mean, he was an outstanding pitcher. And anyway, he was just a kid then, but he won. He won. I think he won the 7th game. I mean, when they beat the Yankees, they beat them in 6, I believe, because they won the World Series. They won. The 6th game was in New York, and they won the game in New York. And I can't remember whether Brown or Dontrell Willis pitched, but when one of those guys pitched, it was lights out. I mean, it was just, there again. You talk about the Mets hitting home runs and that. When you get to the playoffs and you face the best of the best, it's been a baseball axiom since the beginning of time. Good pitching beats good hitting.
Yeah, I upgraded to
the bullpen. The most important part of a team now, because nobody pitches complete games. So you have to have the best bullpen at the end of the year has got a shot to win.
Right.
Win it all.
That's you need 2 starters and a great bullpen. That is,
and that's what Houston did last year.
That's the formula, right? You get two good starters. Your third day you start. You can have, hopefully your starter gets 2 or 3 innings, and you have a bullpen game in the playoffs, and you figure out how to win it.
Right.
And then get back to your 2 starters again. Or a lot of times they do 2 games like that, but depends on how wide the between games. But yeah, well that was learning about the Marlins. They don't have a long history, but they've
won 2 World Series.
Yeah, and they've had some players there, and just how the team has grown and where we're at with them now. And now they got some big guys in their ownership that I don't know if losing is in their DNA. So that's why I think they're being better than what we think they are. So I think we're just so used. Some teams are so used to putting on the shelf and going, this is a bad team. And we're being proved wrong in some of that this year, pleasantly wrong. And I'll be the first to
I don't think I'm not going to. It might not be a correlation, but they certainly seem to be playing better now that Derek Jeter's not running the show. I don't know if there's something to that, or the way he did it was wrong. I'm not going to say that, because he's certainly one of the best players that ever lived, and probably one of the best person. He's a great person too. So, but I'm just saying, he was running the team and he wanted to run it a certain way, and now he's gone and they're playing better. Don't ask me why.
Well, that's, you have great players that couldn't manage. Ted Williams, Babe Ruth. They think everybody can play at their level and do the things they did. Not everybody can do that, and it's hard to comprehend that. But anyway, we'll leave it at that. Leave your comments down below. Any questions, any holes to fill for us? Tell us where we're wrong, because I'm sure we are on a few things. I'm good at being wrong, so you let me know. I want some knowledge, and we'll come back to you next week, and we'll figure out. You have a team off the top of your head, or we can talk about it later. We come back to it before next week. But this has been a fun one. Baseball's really fun. We're starting to get into the dog days here, probably in a few more weeks. But it's been a fun season to me to watch. So I don't think anything teams breaking away from the pack so much, or even when you think a team is like the Rays, you look at it and there's another team right behind them that has just as many wins. You're just like, so it's going to be a fun season all the way down to the end. It looks like. So until next time, like, share, tell a friend, and subscribe if you haven't. And please leave anything down below, questions, anything. So until next time, watch some baseball, and we'll see you.